Hi there, this is Solitaire Ronan from Solitaire Ronan Films, and welcome to another episode of In the Frame. Today's episode, we're talking about colourful colour films. This is just a random list of films that are examples of using the colour palette to an amazingly stunning degree. Obviously, this list is not definitive or exhaustive. I'm sure you can leave your comments better examples of colourful colour films than I've picked on this list. I've picked about 20 films. I'm not going to talk about them in depth, just kind of examples of colourful colour films. Obviously some filmmakers that use colour film use kind of muted colours, kind of washed out colours. Other filmmakers are better at black and white. Other filmmakers are better making colour films. And even within that, they make stunning colour films. So I'm just going to start. Again, this is just a fun little video. It's not a definitive list, and again I would like to see your examples because I'll have forgotten another 20 than I should have put on the list. So I'm going to start with a cheat and count 2 as 1. So we have Ron Frick's Baraka and the follow-up Samsara. These are in the Katsy tradition of films. I think Ron Frick worked on the Katsy films, but these are his own, shot in 70mm. You really need to watch them on as big a screen as possible, and you really should be aware of the futility and meaninglessness of your own existence, because they are visually arresting. They give you perspective of your place in the world. Shots of nature, shots of the silly rituals that we do. Again, on Blu-ray they're absolutely stunning. Watch them on as big a screen as possible and immerse yourself in them, because they are quite amazing. The Katsy films are good, but Baraka and Samsara are just amazing. Baraka, I think, made it into my top 150 favourite films. It's just amazing, and you will get some perspective. If you're one of those people that think you're the most important person in the world, these films should change your mind. Next is a Panos Cosmatos film, but it's not Mandy. It's Beyond the Black Rainbow, which I think is more interesting than Mandy. And again, the colours in this are just jaw-dropping. Obviously the Blu-ray really makes them stand out. It's cliched to call, really colourful films fever dreams, but this one's certainly a fever dream. Kind of science fiction, and strange, but again, like I said, it's stunning. The reds and greens and yellows are just amazing. Yeah, definitely check out if you like Mandy. Next is David Lynch's Blue Velvet, which you could argue perhaps isn't the most colourful colour film in the world, but a lot of it happens at night. But when the colours do come, the detective's yellow suit, the white picket fence is really white. The yellow and red roses along the picket fence, the fire engine, Obviously, the colour blue features in the film, strangely enough. But again, on Blu-ray, the colours really pop. And again, for a film that's so dark in tone, even though it's obviously got David Lynch's trademark humour as well, that veneer of colour and brightness is obviously to a point of the underbelly of the darkness that's going on underneath the grass and all the insects moving. Next is Parahanov's The Colour of Pomegranates. Now this one, the colours are a little bit more muted, but it does have just stunning imagery. So it's not perhaps as vibrant as some of the other films on the list, but there's just something about the imagery and the colours that are just spectacular. I mean, I don't think personally it holds together as kind of a narrative film, because it's not really a narrative film, it's more an expressionistic film. It's kind of a portrait of an artist type film. It's still excellent, but I'm perhaps not as high on it as other people are. But again, Barahanov's use of colour, even though it is slightly muted compared with some of these other films, still makes it a must watch. Next is a Kitano film, arguably the best Kitano film without Kitano in it, and that's Dolls, which I hadn't watched for a while. I'd kind of put off watching it just because Kitano isn't in it, and I do love myself some Kitano. But when I watched it, it absolutely blew me away. It was almost a 4-star film. If I gave half, so I'd give it 4.5, but I don't, so it's a 4. But again, the colours and Dolls are just... I mean, all of Kitano's films, his cinematography is excellent. Obviously his editing is wonderful. But because this was kind of harkening back to traditional no theatre, there's cherry blossoms, obviously the colour red, which strangely enough is a prevalent colour in pretty much all these films. But Dolls, if you're like me and prefer Kitano films with Kitano in them, I would recommend Dolls because it is spectacular even though he's not in it. Next is a Kurosawa film, but it's not Ran or Kagemusha. It's Dreams, which is far from his best work, but the imagery and colours in Dreams are spectacular, from the fox wedding to the apocalyptic one, to the cherry orchard one, or the orchard one, which is my favourite, to Scorsese's moving performance as Van Gogh. Just absolutely beautiful colours. This Criterion Blu-ray really makes them pop. Again, it's a disjointed film, it's an episodic film by its nature. It's not his best, obviously, but as far as a colourful colour film, it's fairly awesome. Next is Dread, and the only reason I really put this on the list is to show that wonderful lenticular by Nova Media. Dread was shot in 3D as well. This is a 3D disc as well as the Blu-ray, even though I don't have 3D technology. But again, the reds, the yellows, especially when it goes into the slow-mo, when characters are on the slow-mo drug, it is just garish and wonderful. It's a cracking little film. Strange enough, way better than the Stallone adaptation. Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it just looks amazing, and such vivid colours, the yellows, the greens, and obviously the reds. It's a common theme. Next is a little film called The Fall, which is directed by Tarsum. This is almost like a Terry Gilliam film, but with heart. Again, it's kind of a series of fantasy episodes with this soldiers telling tales to this little girl in a military hospital. I mean, the colours are just... they probably will give you colour epilepsy. Just stunning colours. The film itself, again, is episodic. Doesn't quite hold together, but it's still a wonderful little film. It has cult written all over it. I said cult. And the colours are just spectacular, especially the end sequence when the big daring rescue is being done with the characters. It's just a stunning film again. You really need to watch The Fall on as big a screen as you possibly can, because it's just spectacular. Next, it had to be on the list because you can't talk about colourful, garish films without talking about Flash. Dino De Laurentiis' favourite colour is red, and you can tell in this film because it is just absolutely spectacular. Oh, falling to bits here. I mean, look at Max von Sydow. I mean, this literally is fever dream material. It's absolutely garish, but it is visually arresting and quite spectacularly wonderful. Obviously, you have the white and silver of the city in the sky, you have the green of Arborea, and you have this spectacular red and blacks and yellows. The handmaidens and Ming's concubines, their outfits are spectacular. Green silk and red silk. I mean, it's spectacular. Don't need to say any more about Flash. Next is a Scorsese film, but it's not Age of Innocence. It's Kundun. For me, one of his last interesting films. This was shot by Roger Deakins, and as we know, Roger Deakins is up there when you talk about the greatest DPs of all time. Again, this is about a young Dalai Lama set in 1937. This is probably Scorsese's most expressionistic film. It's not really plot driven or narrative driven. It's more about emotion and colour. Philip Glass did the score. It's just a beautiful little film that everybody pretty much ignores in Scorsese's filmography. But like I say, I think it's probably his last interesting one. Obviously Hugo was quite enjoyable, but Kundun is really good and is really worth your time. Again, it's, you know, Age of Innocence had kind of flashes to Michael Powell, and Kundun, with its kind of expressionistic nature, has got a little bit of Powell in it as well. But a lovely little film, and kind of the neglected one in Scorsese's filmography, apart from obviously After Hours, which deserves a Blu-ray at some point. I can't believe there still isn't a Blu-ray of After Hours. Next is Kobayashi's Kwai Dan, which is fairly stunning. This is the wonderful Eureka Mass as a cinema release, which is stunning. Again, Kobayashi just went completely mental with this. They pretty much found this aircraft hangar and built the sets. There's an artificiality to it, but it kind of lends itself to that. There's poor Ichi the Earless. That's not spoilers because the hint is in the title of the segment. 4 ghost stories based on classic Japanese literature, even though it's based on stuff written by a Greek traveller who got about a bit. Based on the traditional Japanese idea of ghosts, that would continue to influence throughout the years. This is a direct kind of influence to the J-horror of the late 90s and the Ring films and Grudge and all that, with the long hair. The use of colour, especially in Huichi the Earless, which is probably my favourite episode out of the 4. Just a stunning film. Again, another one that you really need to watch on as big a screen as possible. This is finally the complete 183-minute version. It was one of those things, you know, I had it on the DVD of Eureka Masters of Cinema, so I just wanted to check out the Blu-ray. I wasn't going to watch all of it, but I ended up watching all of it, because you're just agog. You're agog with the imagery, the fact that, you know, the episode of Women in the Snow, he has the eyes in the sky. I mean, it's completely artificial, but it also kind of heightens the reality of it. It's just a stunning film, and one that, you know, you can watch it in the episodes or you can watch it in one sitting, but for use of colour, it's fairly spectacular. Next is De Palma's Phantom of the Paradise, which is, again, I've used it before, it's a fever dream. His crazy musical with elements of Faust and Phantom of the Opera and Portrait of Dorian Gray. Great score by Paul Williams, even better than his Bugsy Malone one, I think. It's lurid and garish, but absolutely wonderful, and so very colourful. Next is a Mario Bava film, and again, I could have included a lot of Mario Bava, but I'm going to include Planet of the Vampires, which is, despite what Ridley Scott says, fairly huge influence on Alien. Again, Bava's famous for his reds and greens in the background. This is no exception. There's wonderful yellow and black outfits that the space explorers wear with bright yellow helmets. The Blu-ray really sets off the colours beautifully, and again, so much green and red you can shake a stick at. Next is a film that's on DVD and it's stunning, and I really need to pick up a Blu-ray, but it's quite expensive, from Japan, and that's Sakuran, which you can even see by the cover. Would give you, by the cover even, the colours will give you a colour rush. I did a random review of this probably about 18 months ago. It's just an amazing film. Kind of follows a courtesan throughout her life, and the colours are just stunning. And again, I really need to get it on Blu-ray, and I'm sure the colours would pop even more, but even on DVD, it'll make you pass out from all the colours. Next is an Argento, and again, I could have probably put quite a few Argentos on it, but I'm just going to go with the stereotypical Suspiria. Again, Argento loved red. Who doesn't? But the yellows, the stained glass windows, again, completely insane, and the definition of colourful colour films and using colour to its full extent. Next is the Archers. The Arrows are a completely different filmmaking partnership. I could have put any Powell and Pressburger colour film on it really, but I went with Tales of Hoffman. Again, one of their more underrated ones. Yes, it's flawed, but it's breathtaking. Shot by Christopher Chalice, who worked with them quite a few times. The yellows of the doll sequence with Moira Shearer, Robert Helpman's cape, doing his best Dracula impersonation. Obviously the whole sequence in Venice. I mean, the colour of the jewels, the gondolas, the greens, and then the kind of sombre blues of the last sequence, the Antonia sequence. Just absolutely stunning. I actually saw this in the cinema at the GFT when I used to go to the cinema when it was restored. Again, not their best, not their most focused, tight film, but it is one of my favourites because it's cinema as cinema should be. It's an experience, and it's a really colourful colour experience. Next is probably a predictable one. It's Wacular Blue by Krzysztof Kieślowski. I mean, for a long time Red was my favourite, but I think Blue is now my favourite. And Kieślowski goes full bore with the use of blue in this one. Obviously from swimming pools and ornaments that catch the light, from sweetie wrappers to paper, pens. It's just a stunning film and a stunning use of the colour blue, strangely enough. I didn't even include Derek Jarman's Blue, which is literally just blue. But I haven't seen that for a long time and I don't actually have it. I should get it on Blu-ray so the blue is more blue than blue. Anyway, Tokyo Drifter by Seiji Suzuki. I remember seeing this on Moviedrome, I believe, on BBC Two, a long time ago, and I think I had to lie down afterwards just because it's so ridiculously colourful. The end scene, the bar fight, it's an overload of colour. Obviously Branded to Kill is excellent as well, but that's in black and white. But Tokyo Drifter, it's got a great song as well. But the colours in Tokyo Drifter are ridiculous. Next is perhaps an odd one, 2001, A Space Odyssey. Obviously a lot of it is in space, but space has never looked so black. You can go check out Nazarin's 4K review of 2001, which is excellent. But if you take away how good space looks in the film, you know, the red and white seats that Leonard Rossiter gets grilled on by the Russians, the orange and yellow spacesuits, the colours are just so vibrant. You can argue there's not as much colour, but when the colour comes in 2001, it's eye-popping. That's my excuse and I'm sticking to it. And finally, Nicholas Roeg's Walkabout, which again you could argue is a limited colour palette. It's mostly yellows and oranges and reds, but it's a film that makes use of colour so well that you can almost feel the heat coming from the screen. It's a wonderful film, and again the colours are blistering, and after you've watched it you probably have sunburn. So that's just a short fun video, hopefully, on colourful colour films, but I do want to see your lists in the comments below of even more colourful colour films than the examples I've shown, and hopefully you'll join me for more episodes of In the Frame. This is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, saying farewell.